Welcome to Chapter 8, Extra Markup. Just because it's extra doesn't mean it's not useful, though, okay? It's not extra in a bad way. You probably don't care about this, so we'll go through it quickly, but the HTML as a language has gone through an evolution where sort of the standards, the rules in it have changed, but basically anything you use today is called HTML5, and that's what you're learning. Forgive me, but I've been lying to you. Up to this point in the class, I told you how to make a web page. It was for your own good. I simplified the reality just to make it a little bit easier to remember and digest. So the truth is, number one, you really are supposed to have this line at the top of all of your HTML documents. And this is the fancy standard way of saying the type of this document is an HTML5 document. It's really just for computers. And as you've seen, the browser is fine if you don't put it in. We've been doing it without it, and the browser still renders the page just fine. But technically, this is the correct way to start an HTML document, is with that exclamation point doctype HTML. But wait, there's more. If you want to make a full, great starting point for a web page, you really should follow a template that's closer to this. So in addition to having the doctype HTML, we should also have this meta tag. The meta tags just give additional information about your page, and on the whole, you don't care about this. It's fine. Just copy and paste what the pros say is what you're supposed to do. I mean, title, we know title, but for the meta tags, it feels a little bit deeper than it's worth. The other thing, and we'll hit on this more later, is we're pretty much always going to include CSS, and this is the way to include CSS with a link, rel equals style sheet, href equals, and then the path to your CSS document. And we'll talk about this again when we introduce CSS, but I think this is a nice way to see, like, now this is the truth that I was hiding from you before. This is probably what every web page would have, are these elements. In the body, there'll be the content, which is not listed here, but also for the sake of full disclosure, most web pages have some JavaScript as well, and that JavaScript is included in your page like this. So note that both the style.css, that's a separate file that holds all of your styles, and you're linking to it here. In a similar way down here, your JavaScript in this case is in a file called scripts.js, in a folder called JS, and it is included, it's linked, imported, if you will, into the body of this page. So this is the way when we include JavaScript, we'll do it like this. So now I've revealed the whole truth to you, and you can feel how you feel about it. You might dislike it. And on the whole, we're not going to even be doing JavaScript much in this class. So there's the full template. Let's talk about comments in HTML. In HTML, there are comments like in all other languages that are used for programming and web stuff. And you'll note that our two main reasons for using comments are to write notes to other developers and ourselves. Like, this is the start of the introduction. This is the end of the introduction. On the whole, I would say this is probably a little over-commented, in my opinion, because it's very clearly, like, right, it's all right there. You can certainly decide how much you want to use comments to kind of leave yourself a note that, hey, this is the end of this block of thing. And maybe, to me, when you can't see the beginning, it can be helpful to put in some comments. And like I said before, oftentimes, the developer that you're leaving the note for is future you. And future you will really appreciate current you reminding yourself of what was going on here. The other reason to use comments is if you just want to temporarily hide something. So in this case, it looks like they put comments. That's these symbols. You see, it's a lot of symbols. angle bracket, exclamation point, dash dash, and then dash dash, angle bracket. So this means start the comment. This means end the comment. Anything in there is a comment. If you put this around markup, then the markup just won't be shown on your page. It's as if it's not there, but it really is there. And so there's not secrecy or security in this. If you right click in your browser and say inspect source or just inspect the page, you can see everything that's commented out. So it's not a secret. It's just temporarily hidden. All right, let's talk about IDs and classes. We've seen IDs before because we used IDs to do those jumping from one anchor tag in the page to another spot. But you see here, this particular paragraph has an ID of pull quote. So this is just a way of saying, I can uniquely identify this paragraph. There's several other paragraphs here, but if I want to do something special to that paragraph, I can do it now. And really the main reason for using both IDs and classes is you're going to do something in CSS or JavaScript with that particular thing. So for today, since we don't know CSS yet, it might seem pointless, but just have faith. This is going to be helpful if you want to say, I want that paragraph to be in all caps, and I want it to be indented. I want it to be in a different color. We can use the ID to hook onto it and put that styling in. You see in this case, they've made this one paragraph in all caps. They didn't show us the CSS that was used. There would also have to be CSS. But this is the HTML that we can use to uniquely identify some element. In a similar way, we can use classes. In this case, they have class important. And I think they make the stuff that's important, they style it in CSS as red. Notice with classes, it's possible to put multiple classes even on the same element. In this case, the class important and the class admittance is annotating this particular paragraph right here. And if there are different styles defined for things that are important, things that are about admittance, this would get both of those styles. And I think they'll show you that, where important must be all caps and admittance is red. So you get all caps and red down here. So more on that later, but both of these are just ways for us to hook into our HTML and apply styles selectively from CSS. We learned in our Kahoot about the two kinds of elements, the two main modes, block and inline. Block elements, which are like all of these, headings, paragraphs, unordered list, take up 100% width, as wide as their parent is. So if their parent is the page, then they're going to be 100% wide. And they'll have usually some margin above and below and possibly to the left and right. So you see this spacing that's here. That's because by default, the browser has some margin bottom on headings. And there's space here because there's some margin bottom between paragraphs and above ULs. So those are our block elements, but notice even though the content is only this wide, the actual element takes up full width. In contrast, we have inline elements like the emphasis and the bold. We've also seen the anchor tag and B and I and images. So things that are inline elements, their boxes are right around them. You see this? So the boxes that are just as wide as they need to be, they'll word wrap. So that's what's going on here. So usually this is more texty kind of stuff that are inline elements. It's useful to be able to group things together as a block element or as an inline element. And when we group things together as a block element, we use a div. So a div is just a division of the page. In this case, this div has an ID of header, which gives us an idea of what it's used for. It has an image and a UL. The UL has links. So this is clearly a header semantically. So that's the div. And a div is a really, really common markup to use because we want to group things. We typically are going to group them because when we style that whole header, we might want the header to have a different width or a different background color so that it looks like a header. And so we need a grouping element to give it all the same background. If you group text or things in an inline way, you can use a span. So notice this span has a class of gallery, and it's around the words Tate Modern. You see opening span, closing span there. So for whatever reason, we want to be able to select those two words. We're not saying that they're bold or italics. We're doing it in a very custom way and even annotating them with the class gallery. So the only reason to do this is because we want to style that differently. So that's our span. So there's a simple example here. The book just puts it in all caps, but they don't show you the CSS that does that. But there'd have to be some other CSS that's making that the case. I'm going to skip iframes. An iframe is just a way to put another page inside your page. And to me, on the whole, it's probably not a good idea of doing it. And the only reason you do it is if you're going to like embed a Google map or something, in which case you just copy paste code from Google to put somebody else's web page in your web page. If you have a choice of any other way of doing it, then do it some other way. This is the meta tags that I mentioned. There's a bunch of meta tags. You see meta, and then there's a name equals. So there's special meta tags that have been defined that give extra information about your page. For example, this one, robots with the content of nofollow, is a way of asking search engines not to index this page. So if you really do have a page, it's not like it's secret, but you're just saying, please don't index this. This isn't a valuable page to index. I don't want this page showing up in search results. You can ask them not to do it by using this meta tag. Sometimes it's helpful, even necessary, to print out special characters in your page. And HTML defines a bunch of special characters like the copyright symbol. And to do that, there's a special way of accessing it with ampersand, a special keyword or numbers, and then semicolon. So when you type this, ampersand copy semicolon, in HTML, when you see it in the browser, it'll be a circle with a C in it. You know that special symbol. Same for, what if you actually want to put a less than or greater than sign? Well, less than and greater than mean something special, right? That they mean the start of a tag. So HTML doesn't know how to just show a less than sign because that means something special. Does that make sense? So if it means something special, it means this is the start of an element. Then to actually put one in, you have to use a special symbol, which is ampersand LT, less than, semicolon. So these are called escape characters. I think they're also called like HTML entities. For me, whenever I have this, I just look up name of symbol HTML entity or HTML and then copy paste what it is. Another way of doing it these days is if you can find the symbol anywhere, you can just copy paste it. And that's kind of easier than memorizing what the codes are. I mean, to me, these three are memorable enough to just go with that. LT is less than, GT is greater than, and copy is copyright. Okay, so that's how this would show up. You see, we actually have a copyright symbol. We actually show the less than or greater than. That makes sense? And some of them have shorthand names like copy, but everything that's possible, not even everything that's possible, has a number as well. Anything that's an emoji, though, you can copy paste because emojis just are text. All right, so summing this up, doc types tell the browser which version of HTML you use, and these days, every single page should have doc type HTML, which means the modern version of HTML. You can use comments, and that's these symbols, to temporarily hide code or write notes to yourself or other developers. The ID and class attributes let you put a unique identifier or kind of annotate a particular element. And usually we're going to do that so that we can hook onto it from CSS or JavaScript. The div and the span are both grouping elements that allow us to group and organize our pages, usually for stylistic reasons. Divs work to create a block level element grouping, and spans create an inline content grouping. The meta tag lets you give a bunch of extra information to your web page, but it's generally always pretty optional. And there are escape characters so that you can include special symbols in your web pages that either you can't type on your keyboard or they would mean something different to HTML, to the browser. So let's try a couple of these out. One that's jumping out at me first is, it kills me to write the word copyright. I want it to look really cool. So let's try that escape character. Does anybody remember what it was? Ampersand, copy, semicolon. And VS Code is smart enough to begin to auto-suggest for that. I'm going to go live. And let's see if we got it. Do you all see that? It's beautiful, isn't it? That's the copyright symbol. We did that. Okay. Okay, let's do another thing. You're not going to see any difference, but I could see how this could be useful. This H2 image and this UL are all about the ingredients. They're kind of the ingredients section of this page. So I think that it would make a lot of sense to make a div. I'm going to use Emmet to give me my closing. And I'm going to cut that and paste it there. Now when I do that, it's not indented correctly, and that kills me. Do you feel me? So I'm going to select all this and press Tab so that now it is indented correctly. And I'm saying here that this div, there's a logical division of the page, which is, this is all about the ingredients, the heading, an image, and an unordered list of the ingredients. Does that make sense? So I've just created a div to organize this. And maybe maybe I'd like to say this part of the page is really a section of the page. And perhaps I'd like to make all the sections have some kind of stylistic similarity. Like all of my sections have a margin at the top and bottom, and they have a particular background, maybe a particular color of text. So I could mark this as a section. Does that make sense? Now, if I save this and look at it, what you'll notice is no difference whatsoever. And that's because simply grouping these together doesn't impact how the page is rendered. It's really the grouping really only comes in if I want to do something to that whole group. So I don't like doing it. Just to show, I'm going to show you, but don't do it this way, okay? I can write stylistic information here, and I could put in I'm doing this against my better judgment. Now, this section has a fuchsia background. Don't do this. Yeah, don't do this. But, yeah. I guess in that case, what I'm taking advantage of is the case that this fuchsia background only applies to this particular div right here. I don't want to write style CSS like this in this class. We'll write styles in a different document when we do it for real. So I'm removing that. Okay. Let's imagine that for some reason I wanted to highlight my usage of the word tuna. So I could create a span, and I'm going to put the word tuna in a span. And maybe here I'm going to say there's a class equal to tuna. And for whatever reason, I know this is arbitrary. I have now selected this particular word, tuna, and I could style the word tuna differently now that I've selected it. On the whole, I would say divs are much more commonly used than spans. We often want to group things together as a block element, and less frequently want to do it as an inline element. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about comments. Maybe I've decided that I actually don't want to show this image, and I would like to temporarily remove it. That's this image's ingredients. So I could remove it by doing angle bracket, exclamation point, dash, dash. And you'll notice as soon as I do that, VS Code marks everything else as green because there's no ending to this comment. So it just keeps going. I want the ending to be right here. So I'm going to do dash, dash, greater than. And notice VS Code highlights it to show me what it means, but only this is in green. And that means it's commented out. So after I've saved it and I go over here, you'll note that image isn't there, right? It's gone. Where did it go? It's commented out. Anything that's commented out, the browser won't treat like HTML to render. Now, if I right-click and say Inspect and bring this up, I can see my actual markup. This is my HTML, and you can see in the markup, that's my commented out image right there. So I just want to highlight, it's still there in the code, and you're not providing any kind of security, secrecy of that information. Now, this symbol in HTML is gross to type. And remember, are you with me? It's so annoying. So VS Code has come in to help us. If you put your cursor somewhere and then press Command or Control slash, it will comment that line. And if you do it again, it'll uncomment it. Comment, uncomment. Huh? So to me, you got to learn that shortcut. That is so helpful. And likewise, if I wanted to take out this whole thing, I can select multiple lines and comment, uncomment there. So that's Command on Mac, Control on Windows, and slash. Y'all feeling it? So I actually want to bring this one back. So I'm going to come down here and bring that back in. Okay, so we talked about comments, divs and spans, IDs and classes, escape characters. I think, did we do all the things? Oh, no, we didn't do all the things. The other thing is the doc type. So we should have that. And we probably should have some extra stuff in the head of our document. So I'd like to show you this. I'm going to go to this new page. I had a contact page. So let me go from scratch. I'm going to right click, new file, and we're going to call this, I don't know, about.html. Okay, so I got a completely blank page. From here on out, when you start with a blank page, this is what you should type. Are you with me? This is Emmett for the win. Are you with me? Exclamation point. When you type exclamation point, it's a shortcut for the whole page's template. So exclamation point tab will give you a really nice baseline skeleton of a page, including this meta tag with UTF-8 and this other meta tag about the viewport, which basically this is going to make your site kind of be more, it'll work better on a mobile phone. Notice that it puts in this for us. It's also included that our spoken language is English. I mean, if that's not the case, then change that. But this is a nice default if you're making a normal web page. So again, that shortcut was exclamation point. Just one exclamation point. You can see if you go up and down here, these are the other Emmet shortcuts that match this. Apparently 3 exclamation points is just the doc type. I don't know why you'd want to do that when you could do 1 exclamation point and get it all. Notice if I press tab, you can actually change those. This is the one that I want to change though, is document. Don't submit pages with the name document. That's lazy. Okay. I have to confess to you that last time I lied to you. I said that we had learned all the HTML that we needed to learn. I was wrong. There's more HTML, and it's hidden in chapter 17. So next time, we're going to do chapter 17, and then we really will have learned all the HTML that we want for now. Okay, so chapter 17 with Kahoot for next time, and I think I'll have an assignment for you as well. Work on the recipe sites, and you can upload just the HTML file. Yeah, Caleb. How can you turn them in? Can't you just submit the, attach the HTML file? I'm not going to be able to see the images. What's that? Let me come see you after class, but there's a spot to turn it in. I posted it yesterday. Let me know if you have issues. It's due tonight at 11:59 p.m.